This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.
Hello, I'm Marcia Cavanaugh. Thanks so much for joining us. Some local attorneys allegedly involved with staged car accidents got a new stage this week, federal court, as indictments were announced. In another crime-related story, a news media examination revealed spiraling failures in the ankle bracelet monitoring system. There are also some failures among charter schools, as 2 more were closed. Elsewhere, there are actions in both Jefferson and Orleans Parish this week that might give an indication of future election outcomes. And for those who want to get away from it all, we look at the numbers for nonstop flights serving the city. On board with us are tonight's Informed Sources, Errol Laborde, producer of Informed Sources, Don Ostrom, Channel 12's Future Watch reporter, LeBron Joseph, news anchor and reporter, WGNO-TV, Channel 26, and Mike Perlstein, investigative reporter, WWL Louisiana, Channel 4. And we stick with Mike because there were some federal indictments that came down today regarding the 18-wheeler crash scam.
Yeah, and this has been going on for quite some time, and this was a major expansion of this case. If you can call a case that's already had more than 50 defendants indicted, 49 guilty pleas, but indicted Friday and unsealed on Monday, was a whole new level of this scheme as the prosecutors laid out and indicted 2 law firms, Mata Law Firm and King Law Firm, and 2 attorneys, one with each law firm, Vanessa Mata of Mata Law Firm, as well as Jason Giles of the King Firm, one of the most prominent accident lawyers in town on Canal Street, as well as another key figure, Vanessa Mata's fiance, Sean Alfordish, who previously did time in federal prison for fraud in the horse racing industry, got disbarred, but since getting out has gotten, back involved in what the feds are laying out as a extremely lucrative scheme in which people would pack into cars, intentionally ram into 18-wheelers, mostly in New Orleans, and then hook up with crooked attorneys to file lawsuits on their behalf, filled with all kinds of like fraudulent claims of injuries. At one point, the U.S. Attorney's Office was alleging that doctors and clinics were also involved in the scam, all the way up to the point of people getting unnecessary surgeries to try to up the payout of settlements. And the feds have laid out claims of in the hundreds of millions of dollars in ill-gotten gains here. Now, one thing that was always frustrating to people, including legitimate accident attorneys who say that their profession has been tainted, obviously, it's a lawsuit-heavy state. We frequently see the advertising on TV and billboards and everywhere else, but many of those are legitimate. That's very permissive, plaintiff's attorney permissiveness in Louisiana, but taken to this level of fraud, costing each and every person at least $600 additional in their car insurance because of fraud. And what this tapped into was finally the highest levels of the actual law firms and attorneys. Previously, of the 51 people indicted, only 1 attorney. Everyone else were either the low-level people who packed into cars and made fraudulent claims, or the street-level organizers who would either drive the car and organize the group into the car. Now finally we're getting into the attorney level as the feds have laid this out. And let me just tell you, the thing that really bumped this up as more than just, paper fraud or attorney fraud was the murder of a key cooperating witness back in 2020, a man named Cornelius Garrison. He was a street-level organizer, participated in many accidents, drove the car in many accidents, would jump out and pretend like he was a witness to many accidents and bring a whole bunch of clients allegedly to the Mata firm through Sean Alfordish. Well, he was summarily executed in the foyer of his apartment, which suddenly raised the temperature and the stakes, and FBI sent agents from D.C. to help solve this murder.
Well, let me get you back to the indictments that happened this week.
Right.
Are they related also to this murder?
And that's why I bring up the murder, because what happened because you have two law firms, one person who was previously indicted and still in jail, so 7 new defendants. 5 of them were just given summons to schedule and a time to come in with their attorney and turn themselves in. 2 the defendants, however, Leon Parker and Sean Alfordish, were given arrest warrants, picked up, put in jail, and both are being detained. And what happened in court today with a detention hearing, it actually got postponed, the full-blown hearing, but the feds laid out a case of Sean Alfordish as well as Leon Parker being a danger to the community and potential flight risk enough for them to argue for detention because of links that they laid out in court filings to the murder of Cornelius Garrison. So those are heavy stakes. The murder of a federal witness can carry the death penalty. One person has been arrested and indicted as the alleged trigger man. A guy named Ryan Harris was indicted in the spring. An alleged accomplice, a female companion of his, has since pleaded guilty, and now her charges have dropped from the murder to accomplice. But that comes with cooperating, and apparently that has at least opened up new avenues for the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office to now pursue and lay out these further indictments.
So far-reaching. I mean, really, really far-reaching, and a lot more to go on this.
They're clearly not done. In this indictment that was unsealed Monday, we have then we have attorneys B, C, D, E, and F.
Wow.
Who are unindicted co-conspirators, so we're all watching to see if and when additional attorneys get named.
We'll see where it goes. E, can you make it real quick?
Yeah, Mike, the person whose job it is to stage the accident, isn't that a really dangerous job right there? Or
It's maybe a tough racket to try to get rich quick illegally. First of all, the lawsuits take years to play out and pay off.
Right.
And you might actually get hurt.
And the physical danger of the accident.
An 18-wheeler is a pretty big vehicle to mess around with. So, okay, we'll be looking for more from you. Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, over to you, LeBron, because we heard about 2 charter schools in Orleans Parish that are going to be closed down.
Yes, 2 charter schools that are going to be closed down. Different reasons, kind of related in some ways. One being the Dolores Taylor Arthur School in Gentilly, which is in the old St. James Major building right off of Franklin Avenue on Gentilly. This was a pretty unique school. Byron Arthur, the head of the school, named the school after his mother, longtime educator, and his goal was to, he had worked at Jesuit and other places like that, St. Aug grad, in the same way that these parochial schools or these Catholic schools educate all boys. The Arthur School was to do that as well, as a public school, as a charter school. Saw some successes early on, had some dips in some of the scores, but gotten the scores back up. But that school is closing because they're out of money. 6 months before graduation.
So they're
seniors,
closing this month, right?
They're closing this month. This whole thing is closing up. A tragic deal, and the parents were at the school board meeting. I mean, anyone involved in that situation, and parents, first of all, very passionate about the school, loved what the school was doing for their young men, but a mismanagement on the other side. And we had this situation where the school board miscalculated the amount of money that they were giving to schools this year. That wasn't the blame for their total deal or whatever. However, it is part of the story, and they did mention that that was part of what was happening. Now, the board of the Arthur School actually voted earlier in the day to surrender their charter, which effectively means the school will be closing. The other school that is closing is the only high school in the Lower Ninth Ward that is MLK charter, run under the same umbrella charter organization that runs MLK Elementary School. They've done very well with the elementary school. It's always had pretty decent scores, been one of the better performing elementary schools. However, MLK Senior High has never performed very well, but the population is also, both of the Lower Ninth Ward and of the school, was certainly not that of, say, some of our healthier high schools. I think both of these schools had student population around 90 or so kids at the Arthur School, maybe 125 at MLK, which is tough to sort of sustain. But the MLK charter was taken away because of performance. One being, or the benchmarks, if you will, one being a population thing, the other one being test scores, and they've never really achieved the test scores necessary to keep the school open.
Now, Orleans Parish, of course, we've seen charter schools, and majority charter schools, and I think one is directly run. And there has been, of course, discussion about the school board taking on more of these schools. But we're also facing the prospect now of a state voucher system.
Yes, state voucher system, and that is sort of the whispers in the education circles that how this will affect certainly the struggling schools, the struggling charters, and there are more of them than there are well-performing charters. You know, there's the Hineses and the Ben Franklins and the Willows and, you know, the Warren Eastons and some of these other schools, Inspired NOLA, and some of those folks do pretty well with Carr. And then there are the struggling schools. And if you as a parent have the opportunity to move your kid from what is a D or C or an F school even, to put them in a better situation, to be better educated, to give them a better future, then chances are that's what you're going to do. The charter, the voucher system will not be all done at once. It was voted on by the legislature and signed by the governor, and it's supposed to be a rollout situation, but it inevitably will have an impact on populations of charter school students, and yes, it could force some of those institutions to close as well, or at least consolidate.
For the school that's closing this month, those students are going to have to now go to another school.
Yes, they're given priority.
Are there seniors that are involved?
Yes, there are seniors that are involved. They are given, according to the public school, the school board, these students will be given priority admissions to schools, which I imagine means, and they said they would also do the same for the MLK students, actually, that they're all given priority admissions to other schools in the school district. Now, does that mean these kids will, you know, be able to roll over to Willow or Ben Franklin and say, hey, look, you know, get my kid in and let him graduate? No, I don't think it means that at all. I think it means where there's an opportunity that they can fit these kids in, that's where they will.
And are there resources for them wherever they go to help them acclimate?
Yes.
You know,
Right.
That is exactly correct, Dawn.
That's a rough transition.
Yeah, senior year.
So really difficult on the kids.
Yes.
All right, LeBron, thanks. E, over to you. Talking politics, Jefferson and Orleans.
Yeah, just some interesting politics, and who knows which way it's going to wind up. But this week, the Jefferson Parish Council made a surprising vote, I guess, that the Jefferson Parish has a 7-member council, 5 district council members and 2 at large, which is the same structure that Orleans has. And the way it is that they rotate the council at large by whatever means the council wants. And both of them have usually been rotating them every year, back and forth. And so in Jefferson Parish, it's Scott Walker and Jennifer Van Branken. So this week it was time for the Jefferson Parish Council, as a matter of routine at the end of the year, to pass a resolution saying, well, with the new year coming, we'll switch council members at large, which would be Jennifer Van Branken. Well, that resolution never came up, okay? And in effect, there's been a lot of animosity between her and the rest of the council. And so in effect, they didn't renew or they didn't make her council member at large, so Scott Walker stays on. Now, he's been on 2 years as council member at large, so it'll be a 3rd year, and who knows, by the time that term ends at the end of 2006, he may be 4 or 5, which is a lot of exposure if you're a council member at large. You become the voice of the council. Van Branken told the Picayune that this is the way she wanted it, that she had other business that she wanted done and didn't want to be distracted. The other council members had a different reading. They said that Scott Walker met with Van Branken and told her she didn't have the votes, and so, you know, there was no point in it. So anyway, so politically, just looking ahead, it looks good for Scott Walker. I mean, who's going to be able to, you know, dominate so much. Meanwhile, in Orleans Parish, Helena Moreno, who's also a council member at large, announced for mayor, and that election is going to be later next year. Now, what all three people have in common, Scott Walker and Helena Moreno and Jennifer Van Franken, is that they all started in TV news. They both became them. Scott Walker and Moreno started at Channel 6. Van Franken started at Channel 8. And that's the advantage if you're in TV news. You're usually good looking, as you see, like by the people here at this table, okay? And you're articulate and you have a high profile. And so you can kind of see the emergence of the TV news person. But it's possible that in the next round of elections that the mayor of New Orleans and the council president, Jefferson Parish, could be someone who went to politics through TV news and just, rose to the ranks. So.
It's your turn, Mike.
So yeah, on the horizon for you guys.
We'll back you.
I should mention that both Cynthia Lee Shang in Jefferson Parish and LaToya Cantrell in Orleans are term limited, so there will be a new mayor and a new council president.
And there are, of course, other names floating around for New Orleans mayor, including Oliver Thomas, currently representing District E, as well as
Royce Duplessis's name has come up
from the legislature.
Well, New Orleans lately has elected someone who enters
Yeah,
the race late.
it's not for people to surface. We're just talking about who's talking about
Sure.
it now, and you get an advantage if you start early.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, Eve, thanks a lot. Let's go on over now to Dawn. And nonstops operating out of our airport.
Good news at the airport. We have 57 nonstop destinations with 2 new ones. Of those 57, first, nonstop means you go straight from here to there. You don't touch down anywhere. 57 destinations, 5 of them are international: Cancun, London, Montreal, San Juan, and San Pedro Sula. The new nonstops, one is seasonal. It's on Alaska Airlines between here and Portland, Oregon. And the airport is super excited about this one because they say Portland, Oregon was the largest city not being served that remained to be served. It will operate daily from January until May. If it is successful enough, it will operate beyond daily. That is Alaska Airlines. Avelo Airlines, which is a new airline for us, is now going to be operating, starting last month, a nonstop to New Haven, Connecticut. Now that gets you to southern Connecticut, also the New York metro area. It operates just 2 days a week on Thursdays and Sundays, but that is not seasonal, that is year-round. There will also be some other nonstops added for Mardi Gras and for Super Bowl. Those will just be short-term, but again, if the airport sees a whole lot of activity from certain paths, then they end up sticking around for a lot longer. Delta's adding an additional nonstop between here and Austin, filling a void that American pulled out. There's a seasonal on Spirit between here and LaGuardia. As far as the airport at large, Southwest is still the biggest carrier there, and they are super duper close to the numbers from 2019 in terms of travelers. That's the last time we had pre-COVID. That was when we were at the old terminal. So this is all new terminal, new numbers. Some exciting things at the new terminal, one of which is 11 new, I need to look at my notes here, computed tomography CT scanners at the airport. They have changed security. If you haven't flown in a while, you go 4 people at a time, you fill a big bin, everything goes in the bin, your shoes, your wheelie luggage, your backpack, your whatever, and nothing comes out. You don't have to take out your laptop, you don't have to take out your toiletries. It all gets scanned. If it needs to be pulled out for further search, it pulls out, but everything else keeps.
So I don't have to take off my shoes?
You still have to take off your shoes. However, during the Super Bowl, they will have canine units in the airport, and the canine units make it much more like your TSA pre-check or clear or whatever, so that you don't have to take off your shoes. The dogs would alert to anything like that. Also, ahead of the Super Bowl, they have a great music program at the airport. There's a musical stage in the baggage claim area. They now will have for the next 3-month rotation of musicians into the airport, they have 10 different acts performing on 3 different stages. They'll remain in the baggage claim area, plus there are 2 stages in Concourse B where they'll have local musicians playing. I saw this happen in the Nashville airport. It's quite nice to walk through an airport and hear live music.
Yeah, I've seen it in airports too.
Earlier this year, we were named Best Airport in North America in our size category, named
Very good.
Best for Digital Advertising, and the airport director, Kevin Doyle, was named Director of the Year.
Oh, congratulations to him.
by one organization.
The one guy was still lagging a bit is European nonstop. That British
Yes.
Airlines is very good. Very
Yes,
prestigious.
London's the only one.
There was rumors
right
a
now.
few years ago that Air France might do it, but it never happened.
My coworker Amy flew to see her grandmother right before Thanksgiving. She was gone, her mom and everyone else. They flew nonstop to London. Her grandmother's British, and she absolutely loved it. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
that's
it's great
really
service.
convenient.
Yeah, she loved it.
To do that. So it sounds like the airport is rocking and rolling. over
Rocking
there,
and
yeah?
rolling. Yeah, they had a good
Literally,
big
yeah.
test with the Taylor Swift weekend. That was
yeah.
record-setting. They expect record-setting days also for Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And lots of late Mardi Gras usually means a lot of flying travel
look-
because you end up with a lot of spring breakers.
And first of the year, Sugar Bowl is part of the
Right.
College Football National Championship
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
semifinal.
We got Georgia and one of the teams that win in the quarterfinals or whatever.
Yes.
Well, it's really great too that the area musicians will have another place for jobs too.
And everybody is gearing up. There should be jobs available for anybody looking. The vendors, the restaurants, TSA, everybody's going to need to hire.
Right. Okay. Well, that's exciting. Good news. Good news. Thanks a lot, Don. All right. Let's wrap it up with you, Mike, because ankle bracelet monitoring has been in the news with a really serious incident that happened not too terribly long ago. You had a piece about that.
Well, right. So 3 weeks ago, there was that mass shooting in the French
Yeah.
Quarter. 3 men wounded, 1 woman killed.
Yeah.
And it turns out that one of the suspects arrested was wearing an electronic ankle bracelet. As part of probation, actually, he was, convicted, and one of his conditions was 24-hour home incarceration. He did not adhere to that, and I was able to break the story looking into his record that he was not only violating on that day, being out and about, but there were more than 40 violations of his very strict conditions of probation ordered by a judge, Leon Roche, that he had violated over the course of like a month and a half. So that sent all kinds of red flags and questions about why the judge, who had been getting notifications from the ankle monitoring company called ASAP every time there was a violation, and the judge did not act on those. Well, I went ahead and looked into the database of all other suspects, most of them pretrial detainees, on some form of ankle monitoring for either curfew, stay at home, or stay away orders, and found that this person arrested, Nicholas Miarano, was hardly the only person routinely violating judges' orders. Some people had racked up just as many, 40 or more.
Wow.
Strict defiance of a judge's orders, and I was able to show that some of those ended up getting rearrested for more serious crimes. One was not 1, 2, but 5 violations of protective orders while wearing a bracelet, and another was arrested for a carjacking while on an ankle monitor.
So the judges who make these orders for these defendants, what are they doing about this? If they're
Well, let me tell
repeatedly,
you.
if they are being notified, so they're given the knowledge, what is a judge supposed to do about that?
Well, at the very least, and we were able to highlight in my story last night, that many of the judges, in fact, most of the judges of New Orleans Criminal Court, send a warrant for the person's arrest, or at least have them brought in, or have the ankle monitoring company bring them in, and sometimes a weekend in jail, or a stern warning, a warning about contempt of court. I can tell you that Leon Roche, for example, who was getting heavily criticized from the Attorney General's office, district attorney on down, he went in immediately, and I was able to show this, another frequent offender with more than 40 violations, he had that person arrested with a warrant, and a gang task force went and picked up this guy. So at least it seemed like the message got through to Judge Roche to maybe start to pay attention to these violation notices. The violation notices include, in some cases, detailed maps of all the different locations of day and night, in some cases, notes about alleged criminal activities, things that you would think and hope the judges would take seriously. After all, it's their orders to put them on the ankle monitor in the first place and to adhere to these strict conditions.
In the case of a domestic violence case, this could mean life or death.
Exactly, and we've seen that. Now,
victim.
the story also pointed out the many judges, like I said, who hear 1 or 2 or 3 violations and say, bring the person in. Let's correct this behavior before it gets worse.
And what about the DA? What
The
kind of
DA
action can they take, or will they take?
Well, so what I am hearing is they are now, and Jason Williams himself came out and very harshly criticized the judges for not taking action with these violation reports. Now I understand they're going to come up with some kind of process where they will insert themselves, because they also receive the violation reports. It's really on the judge to take an action, but they are going to, at least they're debating, to file motions to have the defendant brought to court for violations of the conditions of bond or condition of probation, and have a full-blown hearing that would be a required appearance by the defendant. And the DA's office could make the case that, hey, 40 violations is a bridge too far. This person needs to be corrected.
And one of the monitoring companies actually puts this all online. You can look
And
at.
that's how I was able to get to the database to find these dozens and dozens of other repeat, offenders of their ankle monitoring conditions.
Okie doke. All right, Mike. Thanks a lot. We'll be looking for more from you on that too. Other stories, E. Over to you.
Well, one word we might be hearing a lot this coming week that none of us have any idea what it means is Gasparilla. That Tulane is playing in a football game next Thursday in Tampa called the Gasparilla Bowl against the University of Florida. What is Gasparilla? Is it something you eat or something you drink? Turns out it was a pirate from the early 19th century who went along the waters of the western Gulf of Mexico and raided cargo ships. One day they went after a cargo ship, and it was a Navy ship in disguise, and it didn't end too well for Gaspar, okay? But he became like a cult hero in that era. They even have a Gasparilla Day parade, and the name of the parade is called the Crew of Gasparilla, using our KREWE.
Oh, are they now?
So in the long run, Gaspar the pirate stole our spelling of crew. But anyway.
Okay.
So the
Well,
bowl
now
named
we
after
know.
the
Now
bowl
we
named
know.
after a pirate.
Okay. All righty. Thanks a lot. Don, over to you.
While we're thinking about traveling, I just want to put it out there for everybody that the TSA is going to require real IDs unless you're traveling with your passport. That deadline is May 7th.
Okay.
So it's coming up. If you have not gotten it's pretty simple at either the Department of Motor Vehicles or at a title company.
And this is a hard deadline now.
Hard deadline.
Okay.
Supposedly. We thought it was a hard deadline
Well, I
before,
know
and it kept
before,
getting
yeah.
pushed.
Right.
After years
But
of deadlines,
But it seems like it's going to
Okay.
stick with May 7th.
All right, Don. Thanks a lot. LeBron.
Not to be confused with the Algiers bonfires of just a couple weeks ago, or the bonfires on the levees to light the way for St. Nick on Christmas Eve. This weekend is the St. James Parish Festival of the Bonfires. 3 days and nights of music and fun and getting on the levee and watching stuff burn up.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot,
there you go.
LeBron. Mike.
Well, two big court hearings in the NOPD consent decree. In fact, it could be the two final hearings. One is coming up next Tuesday, which is the last community hearing for people to voice any sort of objections to getting out of the consent decree and into the sustainment period. And that would be followed by a January 8th hearing before Judge Susie Morgan, which would be her ruling on whether or not the department and city are finally going to get out of this consent decree and enter that sustainment period once and for all.
All right. Important time. All right, Mike. Thanks a lot. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you all for joining us. See you again next week for Informed Sources. Have a good evening.
This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.